Good morning. Welcome to Mindset Heartset Reset. My name is Jacqueline Way. I am your host today with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Roshanak Heshimun, and we're excited to bring you today's show. We've got an amazing guest with us today, and Dr. Roshanak will be introducing him shortly, and we have so much to learn during this show today. So we're really excited to be with you all. Welcome to those of you that are joining us from Facebook Live, from YouTube Live, and right here on Humanity's Stream. It's so great to have you all with us. We look forward to seeing you every week for Mindset, Heartset, Reset, and we're excited to have you with us today. So just as an overview, for those of you that are new to the show, Mindset, Heartset, Reset is a really dynamic live weekly show. We love to provoke introspection into your own life. We cultivate compassion and really spark positive change for you and the world around you. Through our thoughtful discussions with our amazing guests, we are going to give you practical tools combined with a lot of authentic, real stories that are going to nurture and empower your own mindset, open your heart, and help you make connections within your own life. We are going to give you the courage to hit reset on your life. Our mission is simple with this show, and it's to expand love on a global scale with a vision to shift humanity's future to one which we can all thrive. So welcome to Mindset, Heartset, Reset. We're happy to have you all here today. Again, for those of you joining us from Facebook, welcome YouTube. We're happy to have you here and right here on Humanity's Stream. We would love to get comments or questions for you as you go along. So please feel free to join us in the chat and you can pose any questions to our guests at that time. Right now, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Roshanak. Dr. Roshanak is a credentialed computational, clinical, and behavioral neuroscientist. How blessed am I to stand with such brilliance in this show? And she works to really support and transform lives all over the world. She is the founder of Access to the Path, and she combines the power of process of science with emotional and spiritual intelligence. It's a remarkable combination. And she really generates innovative strategies for each individual's life and helps businesses to become more powerful, effective, and prosperous. So Dr. Roshanak, welcome to the show with me today. And over to you to introduce our guest.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Welcome to Mindset, Heartset, Reset. We are super excited to have you here. As always, we have a fantastic show lined up for you in January this month, as it is the beginning of the year and we're all into our resolutions and into health and wellness. Our theme this month is wellness practices to help you reset. And we are super excited to bring you today's show, Healing from the Kitchen. We have joining us today, Chef Misha Hyman. And our show is super exciting. We're going to be talking about how food can be healing, how food can be medicine. We're going to be talking about the gateway that food gives us to self-discovery, to really understanding the integrated self, the physical self, the mental self, the emotional self, and all the other parts of our wellness that come together to create us and the life that we're leading. And if you want to make your life what you want it to be, then you have to start with this organic thing, this mortal coil that's your body, that's your vehicle, that helps you get to where you want to go. And Chef Misha's here to help us do that today. So I'll tell you a little bit about him. But before I start, let me please give you a disclaimer that whatever we're talking about today is just for educational purposes, for information. If you are going to make any changes to your diet, to your exercise, to your health and routine, please do see your medical professional, your physician, before doing so and embarking on any journeys. So, having said that, let me tell you a little bit about Misha Hyman, Chef Misha Hyman. So Chef Misha Hyman is the founder of the Health Warrior Project and of the Biohouse. He has a passion for hacking his clients' genome and microbiomes with the powerful and regenerative healing properties of local, preferably organic and sustainably farmed vegetables, fungi, meat, fish, and poultry. Simply put, Chef Misha's mission in life is to heal people with the sentient healing wisdom of food. What are we talking about? He's going to tell you. Over the last 8 years, Chef Misha has helped clients work through chronic health issues, brain fog, and other mental health issues through a functional medicine and functional nutrition approach combined with healthy lifestyle choices to help athletes, celebrities, teachers, doctors, therapists, and executives achieve peak performance in their crafts and stay at the top of their game. really what he believes in is that the gateway to our health is our mouths. You're going to you're going to learn about how your health is predicated off of each decision you make, and especially the food choices and the decisions you make with your fork. We're super excited to have Chef Misha join us today. Welcome, Chef Misha.
Thank you for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Well,
so
we're
much.
so excited to get started. We have a lot we want to cover with you because this is going to be such great information for all of the viewers today and for those that are listening to the recording for days and weeks to come. So thank you, Chef Misha, for being here today. I'm so excited to have this time with you. And I want to start right from the beginning. You know, one of the things that we know is people's stories are so important. It's the way we're connected, the way that, you know, we get to find ourselves in someone else's story. And, you know, it fascinated me when Dr. Roshanak told me about you. The first thing that caught me was the name of your project, the Health Warrior Project. This is an amazing name. How did you get to there? What's your journey and your story that's brought you to the Health Warrior Project today?
Well, that's a great question. I think, you know, to really put it in perspective, the name, in a sense, the Health Warrior Project is a brand that, you know, kind of it's an education brand. I love speaking. I love doing podcasts. I love writing, but I really love teaching people how to, you know, get out of their own way. And the battle against our health, we have this, you know, industrial food complex that's been gerrymandered and designed to keep us sick, where we really, it's if we're sick, it's not really our fault, right? So in my opinion, we have to, I think you said it, Doctor, earlier, you have to kind of stack your daily decisions correctly to, you know, if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. So for part of the ethos of the Health Warrior Project is I want to help you with your tool belt or your, you know, your armory of weapons to actually, you know, find out how you can best beat a lot of these chronic health diseases, you know, mental health issues, cancer, you know, hypertension, you know, obesity, so on, just by changing your food and changing basic lifestyle, you know, changes by whether it's yoga, using the sauna, cold plunge, meditation, things that are not, you know, too kind of cost intensive, but actually pretty easy to tap into.
That's amazing. I love that. And, you know, how did you, can I just ask, like, what brought you
Yeah.
to the Health Warrior Project? You know, Dr. Roshanak has access to the path. I have my Project 365 gift. What brought you to yours? What was that journey that kind of you went, I need to, like, to me, this is, you're just being of service to the world. And that's a unique person. And what I love about your project so much. So, you know, what brought you to that step in your life?
Yeah, I think, you know, I grew up, you know, with parents who, you know, one's a functional medicine doctor, one was a nurse practitioner. So kind of health was always, you know, in the back, you know, in the DNA and in the background. I was telling, you know, Dr. Roshanek that we had a garden, basically every house I had growing up, besides maybe one or two, but we always had a, you know, the seasonal, you know, aspect of going outside and growing your own kale and tomatoes and cucumbers and, you know, broccoli and cauliflower. It was something we did. So when I went to college, I, you know, was big into sports. You know, I kind of knew about, you know, if you want to be a really good athlete, you can't eat, you know, the whole concept of, you know, carb loading before a big race or before a big, you know, match is actually pretty, you know, as you guys might know, is it's not the best science for high performance, right? You want to have kind of more fat than less and less carbs if you want to, you know, perform at your peak performance. So, you know, I would watch most of my peers who are, you know, high school athletes, college athletes, because I was in sports management and I was wanted to be a sports agent or work in professional sports somehow. And I was watching all my friends just eat complete garbage, like actual garbage, like fried food, chicken tender, like the stuff that you think children will eat, but we're all like 20 years old. So I was like the only person that knew how to boil water and fry an egg and make a little food. So I kind of was always the one who cooked a little bit in college. But I think really where my story comes to form, and I think really where it's become a life service to me to educate people how to get out of their own way, is I had a, you know, I had an unfortunate relationship at junior year in college. Are you familiar with the term chubby chaser by chance?
So go ahead and explain it to us, just in
Yeah.
case
So
those who don't know.
you can use Urban Dictionary. It's a pretty simple definition, but the definition is someone who prefers their partner to be overweight than, you know, skinny. It's a psychological disorder. It's a real thing. part of it's like they don't want their partner to leave them. So if they're overweight and unhealthy, they will have less motivation to find a new partner. Anywho, I always grew up, with both my parents being in kind of super slender. Functional medicine was like in their background. So my house, I was never allowed to have high fructose corn syrup, any hydrogenated fats, any processed food really was like off limits in my house. So I was in college, and the first time in my life I had a partner, a girlfriend that was like, oh no, get full and eat extra and eat junk food. And it was her thing. And I actually gained 127 pounds in about like 9 months. And then I actually lost the weight a couple months later after I was like realizing this was not okay for my health, because I was 22 years old, like almost morbidly obese, but I was exercising a lot, so my health was actually okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And I lost all the weight essentially going keto and doing bone broth. But like before bone broth, it was a thing. I would do like Vietnamese pho, which essentially is bone broth, and lost 130 pounds doing that. And then ever since then, really knew and kind of focused on mindful eating, intuitive eating. I know that I only really eat when I'm super anxious. I'm rarely ever starving because I'm like a binge eater, still recovering binge eater. So, work with that on a daily basis. But it's part of my practices to, eat high quality food, but also, don't eat food at windows where you're not gonna be able to, digest it, as well as eat it early in the day. So for me, eating late at night is not a great thing. I kind of throws me off for a few days. My metabolic syndrome, my metabolism gets all messed up. I kind of have really really kind of early onset like depression, anxiety, symptoms if I don't get take care of them. So I think what really got me on this journey was I experienced being super unhealthy for a short period of time, and I actually had the tools because of my upbringing to actually reverse engineer that situation. And I think as I became a professional, I was working in the NBA with the Washington Wizards, and I was watching all of these. I was working in basketball operations. So I was working with the athletes, and all of these athletes are eating junk food before games. These $80 million athletes are eating McDonald's, like hot chocolate, sandwiches, whatever, French toast sticks from Burger King, like right before they perform. And you're just realizing that's not the best way for someone who, if their body is their vehicle for, money, career, finances, whatever, it's their livelihood. Why are they not uptaking their kind of caretaking of their temple? So after I worked with the Wizards, I actually got involved with this human development life coaching company. I don't know if you know Landmark Forum. They kind of took that model and had like executive coaching, and I was in charge of working with athletes, but it was in the executive coaching branch and the corporate coaching branch. And everyone I was working with, and even the coaches who I was working with, every single person that I was working with, one of their core issues was around either food, the relationship to food, relationship of time management to food, relationship to cooking, relationship to the kitchen or dirty dishes or something. But everybody had a food issue. And once you fix that food issue, you fix their gut, their microbiome, and then you fix their brain, you fix their inflammation, and everything else in their life kind of is easier to manage. So what really got me into my business now, the Health Warrior Project, is I left that company I was in because I had a falling out with them. But ultimately, all I knew how to do was use food to help people with trauma, with weight issues, with diabetes issues, chronic health issues, mental health issues, and also just like people think it's really expensive to eat organic and eat healthy food. It's actually cheaper to eat vegetables and eat good quality meat than it is to go out and have junk food. So that was kind of the ethos and building my brand, is teaching people that, for a family of 5, you can go to McDonald's and spend $60, or a family of 5, I could, teach you to cook, a meal in 25 minutes for $25.
So Misha, when you talk about functional medicine and functional nutrition, is this what you're talking about? Because you mentioned mental health challenges, you mentioned performance, you mentioned just how we feel in our daily lives. And so you talk about how you champion and you're involved with functional nutrition. And I love that. So could you help us understand a little bit better that correlation, as you're sort of explaining now, between what we eat and how we feel, how we function, how it's more than just, okay, well, I had this or I had that, and I should probably eat healthy. But help us understand that really symbiotic relationship between the mind body and what we take into our mouths.
So if I said the term functional medicine and anybody didn't know what that meant, think about it as systems medicine or network medicine, right? Everything is kind of working in a system and a network in your body. Not one, if one, like, your one, level is out of, for your blood types is out of order. It's not just going to be that. It's probably going to be a larger issue. So, I think what to think about is, what we eat directly correlates how we feel because a couple things. One, think about your gut. I mean, in a lot of ancient cultures, they say, trust your gut. Your gut is your second brain. And now, obviously, with science and technology, we're realizing that your gut actually has more information, more bacteria, more kind of essentially neurons. I mean, you can tell me this, doctor, but more almost information and neurons happening essentially than in your brain. You actually, if you can heal your gut, it's much easier to heal your brain versus the other way around. So in my experience, when you kind of lower the inflammation in someone's lifestyle, diet, routine, whatever, you're really able to actually dial into the person's, core issues. So if a lot of people they go see a doctor, they don't know how to, especially in Western medicine, they don't actually get the diagnosis correctly, and they spend. I had someone yesterday tell me they spent $1 million in the past year and a half on just going to different doctors, getting blood tests. I'm like, oh, did you try an elimination diet? They're like, no, never. An elimination diet is just taking out, processed foods, gluten, dairy, sugar, and chemicals and additives. And now she's like solving a lot of her issues just by herself. So I think what you eat directly impacts how you feel because your gut is actually sending the information to your brain. Obviously, immediately if you have, I have friends who are vegans that are, eat meat for the first time and they literally eat it and within 30 seconds, like, oh, I feel neurons popping in my brain. This is something I hear all the time with my vegan friends. So it's really interesting to see the power of food. Food is information, right? So if you have high quality information coming into your body, you're going to have high quality data or output or information, coming out, performance. But if you have low quality food, like fast food, junk food, processed food, that's still information. You're putting that low quality information in your body. So, your mind, body, soul connection, it's very hard to get to your soul level of healing if you can't get to your, to your emotions and your mind and really dive into the deep recesses of your mind. But you can't do that if you don't kind of heal your gut bacteria and your gut flora, what's going on in your gut, if that made sense.
That made perfect sense. As a matter of fact, there are as many bugs um, on and in our body as we have cells. So we have
Yeah.
trillions and trillions of bugs we have, and our gut microbiome is incredibly important. You mentioned things like inflammation, which is really the what is thought of as the number one reason for so many issues, disease, etc. Um, and it connects to our sleep, which is very relevant for our mood and our mental health. It connects to the production of different neurotransmitters and hormones, not the least of which are serotonin and dopamine and so on and so forth. And we require these for mood stabilization, for health, for feeling good, for being happy, and so on. So there really is a very powerful connection between what we eat, because what we eat can affect our gut, which can affect our sleep, which can affect everything. So there's not only a direct, but also indirect processes that are very important for how we are in ways that we don't relate to food or to the gut microbiome, including, for example, studies that have shown that changing the gut flora through fecal transplants, for example, can address disorders like autism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very powerful what we eat with respect to not just because most people think of food as uh, what do I look like? Am I thin? Am I fat? Do I have cellulite or whatever? Does somebody else approve of the way I look? And that's how they really originally connect to food is external validation of how we look. as opposed to this organ. Sorry, it's not an organ. Well, I was thinking about the skin, but this entire organism, this entire organic um, shell, that's a beautiful and highly advanced machine, is running all of our systems, our behaviors, our feelings, everything comes really from the central servo of the brain, which is in constant communication with the heart and the gut. So we cannot really separate them. And understanding that your choices even come from how you feel, which comes from how you eat. And you're always talking about decisions made with the fork. So, can you help us now, as we're starting to understand the importance of what we put into any machine, especially this one, is going to affect how the machine runs? Can you help us to come out of wherever we might be, some of us in less healthy places, to make those better fork decisions, as it were? So, because that gateway is through our mouths, how do we get to a better place? Can you help us understand that if we're maybe stuck somewhere else?
So interesting how you phrase that. So a lot of my colleagues or coaches or their wellness professionals, they really, especially in the biohacking space, the social media wellness space, the industry is really built for people who are already kind of like almost halfway done their wellness journey, and just to like uptick and get that next 10%, the next six pack, whatever. And I was actually telling one of my partners I work with, actually last week, that we're like basically wellness Navy SEALs, right? So we, me especially, but like my brand, people that work with me, we don't really care where you're at on your journey. Our job is to get you started on that journey somewhere. And that can just be, if you're 350 pounds and you're, super overweight and you have a lot of, diabetes, kind of scares coming up, pre-diabetes issues, you have, maybe a lot of dementia, pre-dementia, a lot of, you see a lot of that now in people in their early 40s just because of their diet. I would literally just, say, why don't we start walking? Why don't we go to the sauna? Why don't we try some red light therapy? If you can get a pretty cheap one online, or we can get you can get a membership to a spa close by if you have the funds. But also like try to not, eat processed food, try to basically eat real whole food. And if you think,
But how
there's
can
a
we
lot,
get people out of the habit of eating what they're eating so that they can eat better? You see,
well, so a lot of it's an emotional attachment, right?
right?
So I think for me, when I see people who I can give them the entire roadmap, and if they don't choose not to do it, there's typically another block that's happening, right? Whether it's severe depression, they're codependent, they really are using the wrong, outlets to work on their core issue. Food is one of the trickiest things, right? So imagine being an alcoholic or a heroin addict. You only are, if you're trying to go sober, you're only around alcohol or heroin if you go to a bar or go to a crack house or something. But if you're a recovering food addict, you're suffering from disordered eating, you have to be around food at almost every function, every day. People around you, either eating or inviting you to eat. So it's a super psychosomatic experience where the stress that you have, the cortisol levels get spiked. You actually get more cravings, and it's a vicious cycle. So I think what you
How
really
do we
got to
break that cycle?
yeah, I think the way to break the cycle is to bring in mindfulness, right? So what does that mean? Whether it's meditation, that can be a little more graduate level, but just bring in mindful eating or intuitive eating. So I have a lot of clients that I work with. You have to have a food log. You have to write down
What is that?
so you have to write down every single thing you eat. And then when you write it, you write how you felt before you ate it, of what you wanted to eat and what you were craving
Oh,
for.
can we stop on that for just a
Yeah.
minute? I think that
Yeah.
is so powerful. Say that again, please, for the people in the back.
Yeah. So for a lot of people who really are suffering from breaking out of that cycle, because when you're in your kind of fight or flight mode and you're anxious and you want to go go to the deli or go somewhere and grab some junk food, you're not really having foresight. You're not really having critical thinking skills activated to be like, okay, maybe this sandwich or this, burger is going to make me feel sick later. So what I always do with my clients, that every single time you eat anything, you have to write it down. Every time before you eat, you have like an emotion of, oh, I feel stressed or I feel anxious or whatever I feel, because usually the food that you're eating, like you're not we're not like, living 2,000 years ago, we're still hunters and gatherers, or 10,000 years ago, we're still hunters and gatherers. We need to be eating 6 to 8 times a day. 3 times a day is also a little much. So when we eat now, it should be more really consciously of what we're eating, how we're eating it, how fast we're eating the food. I mean, I come from a family where my dad was an ER doc. So between my sister, my dad, and I, we can, be finished a plate of, food that took an hour to cook in 5 minutes. Dinner's over in 5 minutes, but that's not healthy either. So yeah, I think really tapping into, intuitive eating, mindful eating, know what you're eating, know why you're eating it, and make a log in a journal of like an emotions journal and like a food log. So you really can hold yourself to account, because otherwise it's really easy to say, oh, no one's watching, I'm going to have an ice cream and no one's going to judge me. But if
I
you can
love
judge
that. An
yourself,
emotions journal that correlates. I was just putting that in the comments. An emotion journal that correlates to food, to what
yeah,
we're eating when we're eating it. And
Don't
so
we, Roshanak, don't we see a book in Chef Misha's future
we
right
do.
now
We
that he
do
needs
very
to
much so.
create this journal for everyone? This is
I'll
an
send it to
amazing
you.
tool.
Because
So,
I think
yeah.
really right. I totally agree with you that if we, because mindfulness, like you said, Misha, when you go ahead and you're been working on this for a while and now you're just trying to tweak it a little bit more, that's one thing. But for the masses of people who are struggling and think, well, I'll just restrict calories, or why isn't that working, or why is it hard, you're showing us where the hidden variables are, where the sinks are, where the little traps and the hurdles are, why people might fail, and why that, so you already feel bad, and now you're struggling, and you get so far, and then you go, well, that didn't work, and now you feel worse. So it's failure on failure. And I think, throwing in the word mindfulness can get us to a place like, okay, well, I don't know, if I knew mindfulness, I wouldn't be in this predicament in the first place, right? so, so really explaining and describing that what we're talking about is simply just be aware, slowly but surely, of how you feel and how you behave in connection with that feeling. And we could start with food. So right now, I'm off to eat a chocolate chip cookie. Is it out of love or stress? For me, it's out of love, but oftentimes it can be out of stress. And for me too, sometimes out of stress. Just let's be honest. Let's not lie on this show.
Depends on the day,
We're
right?
all
Depends
about
on
authenticity
for
here.
all of us, right?
I did it yesterday, last night. Jacqueline knows. I was like, wow.
I did too. Yep. No,
Cookies came out.
I had those. I
The
made
covered
chocolate chip
cookies,
cookies
yeah, for
last
sure.
night.
But I mean, and that's the other thing, is to not condemn yourself as if you have to be perfect. It isn't about perfection, it's about regulation, right?
yeah, I think that's really important. So I always give my clients a 90-10 rule, right? So anybody that goes 100% in any way, any direction, in terms of the wellness space, there's a term called orthorexia. Are you familiar with that term?
Well, I think a lot of people aren't, so let's tell them
Yeah.
what it is.
So it's like it's like basically anorexia, right? So it's for the same. I'm sorry, that's not true. It's basically like you're so orthodox. It's like the way anorexics are anorexic. We're going to be so clear that we're not going to eat any gluten, dairy, sugar, which
So
actually creates an eating
structured and
disorder.
rigid.
It actually creates an eating disorder like bulimia, anorexia, and actually create a real psychosomatic, conundrum for even your people around you. People can get, super anxious and stressed and not want to take you anywhere, and it can create a real, mental, hurdle for a lot of people to want to deal with you. My aunt was one of these people growing up, so I kind of got that full stop.
I have a mother
now,
like that, so I completely get it.
Yeah. But what happens when people kind of are so orthorexic, you actually get so stressed that the fact that you are not going to have that like soy sauce with gluten, extra sodium, your body's going to be so stressed out, you're actually going to be killing your cells by the cortisol spikes and just your stress. So I think like moderation is one thing. I think that's gets used almost as a weapon for some people, but just be conscious, right? And I think awareness is so huge. A lot of people are just forgetting that this whole issue is about just being aware. And if you like, I call myself not gluten free. I call myself gluten aware. Or like, I know when I eat that bagel, I'm gonna feel pretty crappy for the next
So great.
Oh my
18
God!
hours.
I'm gonna go that route too. Yeah, I'm being gluten aware.
Yeah, no, because gluten free, it's like, oh no, I can't have it. The world's gonna stop. I'm going to break out in hives. No, you're probably just going to feel really crappy for, 2 to 3 days, and then you'll be fine. But if you do it every day, then it's a problem. So I think, one thing is when people are trying to, get out of their, their own way, they're out of their head, out of their own, kind of chronic health issue, is don't put so much pressure on yourself where if you, fall off the rails for a day or two that you can't come back, but try to stack the days in your favor. And every day is just try to stack it onto each other. What can you do today to be a little better than yesterday and healthier, but also schedule in like cheat days. Like I have it scheduled in like a couple days a month. Okay, I'm going to go to the bathhouse and then have a few beers and then you get, have so much Chinese food and, fall asleep early. And like those are days that I schedule in. Okay, I'll do nothing the next day. I'll be rested until like 2 p.m. and then whatever. But you have to consciously know yourself, know your body, know your limits. And I think a big thing is people, they don't know what they don't know. So I think people need to actually get healthy, start this journey to actually realize how sick they are, how, much better they can function if they actually do the simple things. And I'm just saying, I just pitch the little things. Eat whole real food, walk, get sunlight in the morning, try to do some stretching, do some mobility exercises, yoga if you can, and sauna. And if you can do that with sleep, right, that's pretty much all you need. I think most people, they overcomplicate it, and especially in the biohacking wellness space, people over biohack, people over, stack different types of healing modalities, and they actually get, their bodies actually become, immune and almost fatigued to some of these treatments. They actually aren't that effective. And now you're hearing a lot of professionals say you shouldn't be taking all your vitamins and everything until your late 30s, 40s, because when you're older, they're not going to be as effective. So, because I have friends who are like in their early 20s, like taking 15 vitamins a day, which when they actually need it later in life, they're not going to be as effective.
I think that's a great point too, Misha, that, we try so many there are so many options out there, right? I mean, Dr. Google will give you any different modality you possibly want to try, whether sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's from a professional, and sometimes it's not. So I think that's a really great point that everybody needs to realize is that if you can't even get to the basics, doing so many alternate, and whether that's low fat, keto, like there's so many different options these days, right? On what you can choose. So I'm glad you really kind of focused in on that. And, one of the things that I'm hearing that I love is obviously with Humanity's Team. And for those of you that are potentially new to Humanity's Team and aren't familiar with the work that they do in this world, it's all about conscious awareness, right? How do we expand conscious awareness at a global scale? That's their mission and how we do that. And I love that you're talking today about how we can do that, starting with the most basic thing that we need to survive, and that is food. Because when we can start there, and the founder of, and Roshanak, this, one of the founders of Humanity's Team, Neil Donald Walsh, he talks about this all the time when we ask him, what are those practices that we can do to become more consciously aware in our life? And it's actually the thing that he always says. He says, every time I open the fridge, I can start right there. What am I choosing to be the best possible, truest version of who I am, right? So how am I opening that fridge and saying, how am I going to love myself today, right? How am I going to be loved today? How am I going to show up as love, not just for everybody around me, but for myself? Because we know that starts there in that understanding. And so when you can open your fridge, and as you've been saying to us, make choices that is literally oozing love for yourself, I can see that in every food choice that we make now. Because it was actually interesting, my kids on the weekend got taken to McDonald's. They'd gone to a birthday party and they'd gotten taken to McDonald's on the way home.
Chef like,
well,
he couldn't help himself.
And it happens, right? And my kids got home and I was like, how's the party?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and my kids literally come home from the party. I said, how's the party? Oh, well, the go-karting was great, but oh God, we went to McDonald's afterwards and I didn't get anything. Because my kids, none of them actually experienced McDonald's till they were about 10. And that was at somebody's birthday party. It wasn't because I ever took them. And so now they they know
we
how
weren't allowed to
crappy.
eat fast food until I had to go to college to have my first McDonald's.
Right. Well, and that's it. And so not only am I, feeling pretty good about the fact I can say that about my kids, but I love the fact that my kids actually think and know McDonald's food is crap. Right. And that's education as well. And then it becomes their choice. Now, listen, I'm not saying my kids don't eat fast food, but our fast food is sushi from Whole Foods, right? That's the choice that we make. That's different kinds of fast food. That is real food. It's not, processed and God knows what else has gone into it, just growing the potatoes. So I love that you're bringing that up and that we can all take this into our life where we go, every choice we make, whether that's a cup of tea, a glass of water, or something out of our fridge, as Dr. Roshanak, you said, the fork that goes into our mouth, we can just take that moment, right? And go, oh, I am being mindful. That's all you have to do, right? People always go, how do I do a mindful practice, right? But it's like, what's on the end of my fork? I'm being mindful. I'm taking a moment of time and noticing. And that's all it is. It's that simple.
Doesn't Neil always say, Neil Donald Walsh, the founder of Humanity's Team, he says, and you love to quote this about him, that even when he goes to the refrigerator, because everything that he does, his question is, how does this serve the purpose of my soul?
The purpose of my soul. Right. Yeah.
That's what he says.
That's exactly it,
How does
right?
this serve
How
the
does
purpose
it?
of my
Right?
soul? So we could just ask that simple question. Chef Misha, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think that's, the highest level of being is everything that you do in your life is actually translating to your values, your beliefs, and your higher purpose. So if you're to tell me, like, do I buy into that? 100%. I think what we really have to, from a cultural perspective in society, and especially in the West, we have to see that, I think, again, back to the Health Warrior Project name and the brand is, we have to see that there's a lot of people out there who are, and I hate saying the word zombies, but they're walking, our ancestors wouldn't recognize, not our ancestors,
Unconscious.
three generations ago would not, acknowledge us as the same type of people, of how we're kind of walking through life, not actually building anything, doing anything, creating anything. We're just sitting and kind of numbing ourselves and sitting on the couch. And we're the society that's been sitting of the most of any other, pedal hominid society. So I think it's really interesting just to see if we can consciously think, like, what are, most people don't even have a 16-month or 18-month to 6-month to 3-month goals of just what are we going to do, like, how, in terms of my wellness, in terms of my social circle, in terms of my career. So I think a lot of people, if they can actually have foresight, realize that if the decisions they make today are going to impact not just a year from now, but when they're 60s, 70s, and 80s, then maybe we can consciously be able to, think about health in a different way. And I think, the pandemic was a really interesting moment in time where we actually realized that, health is really important. I think before that, we didn't really have that as a people. The past 40, 50 years, we kind of taken our health for granted. And I think, the age of mortality, like, decreased 2 years. So something is really going on. We really need to change this overall, gerrymandered food system. So, what I see is, people like us are, I hate saying the word light bearers or light workers, but we're people that actually have information. Like, I feel so bad charging most of my friends and clients for this basic stuff we're talking about, but other friends that charge them $500 an hour for half this information because they think they need to commodify this wisdom. I believe your ancient nutritional wisdom should be a, something that should be actually passed down generations and generations, but we've actually lost that by, after World War II, with the industrial food complex and, subsidizing, these monocrop farms to, don't get me started on that, but to basically create poisons for us and to create systems where we don't really have a way out except doing it in community, following, the right leaders in this space. And I think what, you mentioned earlier about, whether it's low fat or high fat or, keto or plant-based or, or carnivore, is there's so much misinformation right now. And I think most of it, and when you're seeing these people, and I know a lot of these, influencers and whatnot, most of it's just about a money grab or marketing. And it's not about actually healing the community or healing people. So, I think what my, mission in life is to really just open source this information, educate as many people as I can, create as many little community health warrior health workers as possible, so we can spread the message and just cook for as many people as possible. Because what I'm doing is nothing that, someone's great grandmother did, in 1905, but I do it, on a, in a modern basis. So I think it really, it's a shame that we have this health crisis, but it's also an opportunity where we can actually come together as a people and change policy, help reverse climate change by helping change our soils, and so on. So there's a lot we can do. And I think when we feel helpless, there is a level of learned helplessness that we're, basically taught to have, that we can actually undo by changing the food we put in our body, because it will literally give us more energy. It will literally give us more, stamina, focus, and the ability to conquer some of these major issues.
I love that you made that full circle connection, that it's not just our body, but it's our entire ecosystem that we're talking about. Just before we started the show, Misha, you were talking about a farm that you were working on and you're building at the moment. And, I'm an avid gardener, and I know that just that connection, we're talking about the fact that we're talking about food as a mindful practice. Roshanak and I hear this a lot of the time, where people are like, well, I can't sit and meditate. I can't quiet my mind. That's not my thing. But already when we were talking about just the mindfulness of eating, that's a moment of time that we can then put together with, oh, you're going out into your garden. You're now growing your vegetables, right? That's another mindful moment of time that you can add into your food as well. I'm an avid gardener. That is my meditation time, when I'm going out into the garden and making that connection with nature, because now you've added this extra layer. It's not just the food that you're eating, but now you're connecting to the world around you. And what we know is that nature, and that connection to nature, is another pillar of well-being that will just bring us the happiness that Dr. Roshanak was talking about earlier. So now we're seeing this beautiful ecosystem that you're talking about, where we're connecting our body, mind, and soul to our eating as a starting point in our life. Do you feel that connection? Is that something you would agree with, or you'd like to share more about the farm that you're, and why you're building that new complex that you told us about earlier?
Yeah, so I think really well said, and I think really interesting way to say that. So I think first and foremost, for people who, when you're Dr. Vorshanek, when you're saying how do I get someone to want to start eating healthy and get them to want to eat whole real food if they're stuck in their old eating habits, what's the best way to solve that issue, is take a whole family, people who've never eaten vegetables in their life, to a regenerative farm, a local farm, a raspberry patch, strawberry patch somewhere, but just a farm, and actually have them pick the real food and try it. Like, oh, that's what an asparagus tastes like, or that's what
what real asparagus tastes like.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of food, I mean, as you guys know, once it's harvested, loses most of its nutrients. And the longer it's sitting on the shelf, the longer it's sitting in Publix, Whole Foods, ShopRite, wherever, you're actually losing a lot of the nutrient density, anyway. So I think one really simple thing is there was this really amazing TED Talk I listened to in 2016 that actually got me on this path of, as a chef, thinking about agriculture differently, thinking about urban farming, growing in very, highly dense, populated areas where you can grow in basements or rooftops. I was listening to this guy, I think it's Caleb. He was an MIT professor, but he basically did a whole talk about, growing food in an urban environment and the perfect greenhouse and giving it all the things it needs to live. And essentially, an apple takes about 14 months from when it's picked to when it's sold at the grocery store. So most of these produce we're having in our grocery store are actually just filled with, are taken to these rooms, these cold storages, and they're actually frozen, and they're essentially all the nutrients are taken out, and it's just sugar. So we're really not even eating whole food in our grocery stores. So what really got me on this path and working with farms and kind of doing this work is, the whole job is how do we heal people's trauma, mental health, physical health, right? Well, I started working with these wellness centers, and the Biohouse is basically a trauma-informed healing center and trauma facility, but basically on farms, regenerative farms. If it's not in a rural area, you can do an urban farm, you can do a greenhouse, but really getting people who are in the facility actually growing their own food, eating their own food, and actually having the relationship to what they grow. Because when you get a relationship to the food that you grow, you're building that mindfulness, that awareness is being built in to that process. And sure, it's better for your health, but it's actually also better for your mental health, because when you're actually growing a tomato for 2 months, you're growing a bok choy in your living room, you actually have a relationship to that. Sure, you're taking in the carbon monoxide, they're taking your oxygen, carbon dioxide, sorry, but you're actually having a symbiotic living relationship with what you're eating. And a lot of people have no relationship to the food that they put in their body, right? They mindlessly grab a bag of chips, put the chips in their body, but what is the supply chain? What is the kind of inventory of what's been in that bag of chips, and how far has that traveled, and what's the carbon footprint, and so on and so forth. And I think the closer we are to nature, whether that's working on so in Florida that we're talking about the farm, it's not just a farm, it's actually a food forest. So this company I'm working with called Food Forest Abundance, they build food forest designs. So any property, it could be a prison, a hospital, a school, a church, a backyard, a condo, anywhere. They actually build customized designs to actually build food forests where you actually can not ever have to go to the grocery store. So right now in St. Cloud, there's this farm called Golf's Landing that is kind of the showcase, which we're doing a lot of cool stuff at, but really teaching, the youth to start doing this, really early. So there's creating a farm academy that we're going to be working with. I'm actually putting together, a team to help build. Maybe you guys can be a part of that as well, but essentially create real kind of, alternative schooling programs to teach people about, like, give them vocational skills, but actually teach them about, mind, body, spirit in a real alternative way, where food and what we grow is kind of the backdrop of what we're delivering.
I'm in.
Yeah. Well, I'm in already. I already designed school programs, so I can help you with
then
that one.
We'll be in touch on that then, for sure.
Perfect. And Misha, what I love about what you said, and this is going to take me right back to your story and how we started this, is, your story and the fact that you shared with us from the beginning, your relationship with your girlfriend that put that weight on, and then you started your own practice. Because I really hear the depth of the practice, and it's what Dr. Roche and I talk about. We talk about this on a regular basis, is how do you create these practices in your life? Because change doesn't happen just because one day you decide to eat an asparagus and then the next day, you're back to your same habits again. We have to create these practices that change our habits, that change our brain. We create new pathways so it becomes part of our life. And, one of the beautiful things I hear in this, and I said to you at the beginning of this, is I really see you coming from such a beautiful place of Roshanek's favorite word, service for the world by doing this. You're giving back so much. And in this full circle process, I see the learning for others that will help them do the same. Because when we start growing things in our garden, well, now we're not just taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of the planet, which in turn is taking care of everyone. When we're growing fresh, produce in our garden, we're creating the flowers that feed the bees. Like, I see this whole interconnection of not only just now you're taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of the planet, you're taking care of other living creatures. And what we know is that when we give back to ourselves, it creates that beautiful giving back loop back to the world. That, again, happiness and love and connection. And this is building all of this. Like, I'm so excited for the work that you're doing, because it's this gorgeous full circle that's being created for everyone in this. So thank you for the work that you continue to do, and help create this understanding for everybody that's listening today and that will listen in the future, that this, as much as it sounds like we're taking care of ourselves, this is taking care of everybody in the process. So beautiful. Dr. Roshanek, back over to you.
Well, can I make one point on that? I think that's really important. It's like, the thing when you fly in airplanes, right? You have to put your mask on before you can put anybody else's on next to you, even your child. That kind of has been my journey as I've been as a recovering codependent. I've always been trying to help others first. But as you said, if you kind of help yourself first, can heal yourself, others will be able to see through you as a model, whether it's your friends, your relationships, your family. If you're the one to take the initiative, people will follow suit. If you're in a toxic health environment in your neighborhood or where you live, but you choose to use the resources because even in a local bodega where you're in a food desert, you still get like 32 little vegetables in the windowsill, right? So there are ways to get out of this issue. And if you become the beacon in your community, the health warrior in your network, people will follow suit. People will they will want to feel good. They want to look good. They want to have energy the way you'll have it. So I think that's a really important point that you made, that if you start doing it, then other people can kind of follow in. So you're actually doing a service. It's one of the most selfish things you can do, is to actually help yourself, so you can actually help those around you.
Love
Well,
that.
it's
That's
that
the ripple
win-win
effect, right?
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the ripple
Your
effect.
ripple and my win-win. It's the win-win, because you win because you're doing well for yourself, but the other person also wins because you're modeling that behavior for them. You're giving permission, you're inviting them to also join and have this wonderful feeling of health.
Mm,
It changes how you feel. It's like a good night's sleep. It changes how you feel. It changes your mood. It changes your decision making. It changes your life. And that's one of the things that we're talking about, is that your food choices direct your life. So if you want to create a better life, you become more food aware, as Chef Misha you
mm,
said.
mm,
And on the other hand, also, it's not just the win-win and the invitation and the modeling good behavior, but it's the reward. And Jacqueline has 365 Give. She's all about giving every day. When we give, we can give to ourselves. We're also giving to others. And we know from
mhm.
our good friend, Dr. Stephen Post, who's the world's expert on the science of giving, you're the first person who feels good when you give. So if you give and you're taking care of yourself, that's like a double whammy. And you're giving to others. And the more that you are healthy in a whole way, the kinder, more compassionate, more patient, et cetera, you're going to be with others also. It's been shown scientifically through different studies that when you're in a better state, you treat others better. So
Right.
no matter how you slice it, this is extraordinary. This is, nobody would think of this, but it's a revolutionary way of thinking about how we can improve not only our own lives individually, but the world collectively, globally.
Mm,
How can we make a change? When we think one person can't make a difference, we absolutely can. It starts with ourselves, and then it
right.
expands out into our local community. So I love this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, amazing. Now, before the show wraps up, Misha, we always like to ask our final question, and it's called our, and this is kind of perfect for today. It's our get off the couch moment. And if you had one thing to tell everybody today to help get them off the couch, because that's, I think, our biggest problem these days, is that we get stuck. Right? We get stuck on the couch. We get stuck on our phones. We get stuck with the potato chip bag in front of us or the spoon in the ice cream. What would you tell people today to get them off the couch, to get them moving in their own lives so that they can live their best lives and thrive?
Well, I mean, I think that's a really interesting question. I think it depends on the person, right? So I think if I'm speaking to someone who probably is dealing with a health crisis. Um, I really would just basically say is like the truth is, and the reason why my business I think has been successful is I kind of give everyone I work with, I kind of am meeting them at the last leg of their wellness journey. And then it's a very quick switch when you essentially just tell them you need to be the CEO of your own health, meaning like no one's going to save you. You need to take accountability for yourself. And if you're waking up and not feeling great, like maybe go for a walk and maybe go for a sauna, maybe do a hot yoga class. But I think the biggest thing for me is like I'm a big sauna person, big Russian bathhouse kind of guy. I just got back to New York. Yesterday I went for the first time in like 3 months, and it was like I forgot that it's like one of the most healing things you can do for your body is they go to 220-degree sauna, 20-30 minutes, cold plunge, completely clears your brain, completely stopped almost all my inflammation in my body, aches and pains. And I think like for people who are just at a moment where they're just sick and stuck and kind of giving up, just go either buy a $200 infrared sauna and zip it up in your house and just sit in it while you work, or go find a local gym with a sauna in it and just add that into your routine. Once you add that in your routine, you'll actually feel the inflammation, you'll feel the mishigas and all the like kind of sickness that you get in your brain, the noise will kind of quiet away. And it actually is its own level of meditation, and it's 30 minutes in the sauna is equivalent to 90 minutes of hard cardio. So it's a very low impact way to get get yourself out of a pickle, a health pickle.
I love it. That's perfect. And what a great way to look at it. You've inspired me as well, to add that extra layer into my own routine. I go to a gym. I go to a local community center. I don't spend gobs of money going to a gym, but they have a sauna, and that's something I can definitely do. And I think it hits a reset button in your own life too, right? When you start to feel that, it's almost like you're clearing the emotions, clearing the sweat, clearing the toxins all out.
It's like immediate.
And then,
yeah,
right. And then you're going to make a different choice. Like, what do I actually want to now fill myself with? And I think we talked about so many of those things today, not only filling yourself with food, but filling yourself with those mindful practices in our life that's going to make us connected to the world around us. So thank you so much, Misha. What a pleasure, a joy it's been to have you with us. I've learned so much today. I know all of our friends out in YouTube and on Facebook, they've been remarkably active. So many great comments. Thank you so much to all of our friends who are out there, Wayne and Sean and so many others. We appreciate you joining us today. Dr. Roshanak, over to you to talk about next week.
Thanks so much. But before I talk about next week, I want to ask you, Chef Misha, if you could leave us with one quick thought that you think is fundamental to all of this, what would it be?
I guess one thought would be, it's easier to heal in community than it is to heal alone. So if you can find a buddy, if you can find not necessarily accountability buddy or someone who's like you're paying a coach to do it, but someone who like maybe is at your level on your wellness journey, where even if it's your mental health journey, or if it's you're suffering from alcoholism, or you're in AA or Al-Anon, where you just need a buddy, I challenge you to do it with someone, because especially now, I don't know if you're in the West Coast, if you're listening to this, or in Hawaii, or South America, but right now in the winter, in especially in America, we're getting SAD, seasonal affective disorder, SAD disorder. So a lot of that helps things kind of compound, and if you have one bad week, you can have a bad month, and you can have a bad 6 months, and it's really easy to spiral. But having a partner, whether it's a girlfriend, a family member, a friend, a boyfriend, whoever, just to go on this journey with you and just do daily check-ins so you're not alone, really is helpful. Because I think doing it alone, especially in the winter, can be a tough task for a lot of people.
I can't do it with Dr. Roshanak. She eats way more chocolate than I can ever consume.
But it is high grade dark
chocolate.
I know.
Well, that's good. Day before bed. Perfect.
Exactly.
Listen, I can tell you all the benefits
snack
of chocolate. It is good for your cardiovascular health. It decreases your cholesterol. It increases serotonin. I can go on and on about this, but we're at the end of our show.
We're at the end of the show.
But at least we squeezed in a little chocolate. Chef Misha, I absolutely loved your one thought. I think it's so important because it brings us back into connection and oneness, and how powerful that is, and that we are not alone, and we never have to be. And so I love the dynamic of really, as we went through this journey, understanding the importance of connecting to self, and the richness of being able to connect outside of self, to the environment, to community. And I think that it is a beautiful and powerful message that is, in fact, so healing and so supportive and so fundamental. So I'm so thrilled that you joined us today, Chef Misha. Yay! Thank you so much, you
Thanks
guys.
for having me.
It was really a treat to have you here. And I think you offered us so much education, so much encouragement, so much truth, and a beautiful authenticity that really does invite all of us to step into what is real, that then empowers us. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate your message, and I appreciate you giving us your time. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to connect with Chef Misha, tell us, Chef Misha. There we go. Is this how we do it? She's up on the screen.
Yes, my two websites. You can reach out to my Instagram, the Health Warrior Project, or the Biohouse. But email or text messages, or Instagram messages is probably the best way to get to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So next week, everybody, we are moving into February, and February is Understanding Love Month. And we cannot wait. Oh, no,
Yes,
it's still
yes, yes.
January. Sorry.
Oh, we got one more. Hold on, one more.
Wait, one
Right?
more. We got one more. We got January 30th. Next week is the last of our series of wellness practices to reset. And
Yes.
our guest will be Pete Cohen. We are super excited to have Pete
Yay.
join us next week. He
He's
is
amazing.
all about, he's known as the people's coach, and he's all about helping you get to where you want to be and doing it in a way that is really powerful and authentic. So, on the one hand, we have all the beautiful guests who have taught us what we've learned so far. And now we're going to go into that sort of final bringing it all together with our people's coach and understanding about your future self and how your future self can guide you now where you are to becoming exactly who you always saw yourself to be. So please do join us next week with Pete Cohen on Mindset, Heartset, Reset. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And we hope to see you again next week. Bye.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Namaste.